Muted. It happens at least once a month. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday morning's webinar. I'm Chloe Tetro. I'm the health coach here with Ready Care. And for this morning, we're going to be looking at focus and productivity, what's meant by focus, how can we leverage some of our brain's focus and productivity power to help us engage more efficiently with our tasks at hand during the day. We'll be focusing primarily today on something called neuro-priming and looking at some practical applications on how we can best utilize our focus. So for a quick old start, let's look at the science. Now, I'm thinking modern life in general. I think we're with the invention of smartphones, most people out there, and if you're old enough to have not had a smartphone before, you've probably noticed the steady decline in focus that can happen very much with something like a smartphone, something like constant access to the internet, something like being bombarded with information constantly, particularly if you're quite curious as an individual. In the palm of your hand, you have every answer to every question you've ever wanted, apart from how do I get my focus back up? The impact that has on the focus through mechanisms involving the prefrontal cortex and neurotransmitters like dopamine, those interruptions that happen so frequently, and that the multitasking, the obsession with multitasking and the necessity of multitasking in a lot of different jobs can overload this prefrontal cortex that we talk about often, the CEO of the brain, the decision maker, the aspect of the brain that leverages, what needs our attention right now. When there's the instant gratification as well of that digital notification, that little red light, that little red one that comes up, that can condition the brain over time to prefer short-term dopamine hits, which leads to a cycle where sustained attention actually becomes more and more difficult because, as we've learned through different chats together, the brain operates through repetition. It learns through cycles, repetition, and what it expects you to want from it, it makes it easier to get there. So if its expectation is set up within the parameter each day of what we like to do is pick up the phone, bloop, we see something, instant gratification, and that happens in cycles throughout the day. The brain's going to think, well, this is what they want me to do. This is what I'm going to get very good at. Anything that deviates away from that then becomes increasingly difficult. So that constant demand for cognitive switching from task to task, and that hunt for immediate rewards can really diminish our ability to engage in deep, meaningful tasks, which we want to undertake. Something might come along, you might be studying something or have a particularly large project with work, or even a book you got for Christmas that you're absolutely dying to get through, and you go, jeepers almighty, how is it that I can't read 3 pages now without feeling like I need to pick up my smartphone, or I need to take a break, or I get a question, or it becomes more difficult. So what's happening a little bit under the hood, and I love to go into these things at the beginning stages, as you know by now. So the actual science of focus and productivity is rooted in the brain's intricate networks, where the prefrontal cortex and neurotransmitters like dopamine play a pivotal role, as they do with most things. The prefrontal cortex is the one that's kind of maintaining attention and managing distractions, or doing its best, God love it, acting as the brain's command center for decision making and problem solving, whereas dopamine would be more associated with reward system and influences motivation. It enhances focus on tasks perceived as rewarding, which is actually a really important part of increasing focus and attention that we'll come back to in a little while. There's studies like those at Ernst in 2009 in the emerging neurobiology of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, which highlight the prefrontal cortex significant role in attention regulation. Research on dopamine's role, meanwhile, as discussed in a paper in 2011 written by Valkow, which is called Reward Dopamine and the Control of Food Intake, Implications for Obesity, which was a particular study looking at metabolic syndrome and obesity, showed that the impact on focus and productivity through motivational pathways and how that was influenced by prefrontal cortex and dopamine. They underline the interplay between the brain structures, neurotransmitters, and how that shapes our ability to focus and be productive. Now, I talk about the prefrontal cortex and dopamine a lot. They come in quite often because I tend to focus on things shaped around driving behaviors, motivation, reward center pathways, addiction, whether it be food addiction or behavioral addiction. So they can come up quite often. But with focus on productivity, we also have two important elements, and not to go too hard into the science aspect of things, but I felt they were important to bring to today's session. You'll have things like the neurotransmitter, neuro norepinephrine and serotonin, which also play a crucial role in focus and productivity. So norepinephrine is associated with arousal and alertness, and what's meant there is how on you are, how in the room, landed in the situation you are. And while serotonin, which you may have heard of, affects mood, it's one of the neurotransmitters really intrinsically linked to how we're feeling that particular day. So the two of which can really indirectly, but they're involved in the process, they influence focus and motivation. Also, you have environmental factors, which are massive for focus and productivity, like distraction. Stress is huge. Stress will raise our cortisol levels. Whenever we've cortisol levels, it's a lot. It basically disrupts our neurotransmitters. So heightened cortisol will kind of shut down any peripheral part of the brain that's not seen as directly involved in survival mechanisms, directly involved in dealing with the stressor at hand. So things like adaptability and learning tend to go down. Now, cortisol can bring up focus in the immediate alertness of the stressor at hand. So what I mean by that is, if you're in a situation where you find out something was due at the end of the day, your alertness and your focus might go up quite a bit, and it'll go up in relation to that particular task. Everything else melts away, which can be good. Like, cortisol gets a bad rap as the stress hormone, but stress is involved to a degree in a lot of productivity, in particular with individuals with ADHD. Cortisol plays quite a large part in productivity in unmanaged ADHD, definitely. So a lot of our environmental factors, including things like lack of sleep and lack of nutrition, which we'll look at in more detail in a sec, they all play a huge impact. So there's quite a lot at play with regards focus and attention. I think primarily people tend to beat themselves up and go, jeepers, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do the thing at hand? Why am I constantly distractible? It's because you're living in an environment that has harbored distraction. At the turn of the internet being so prevalent, at the turn of smartphones, at the turn of remote work, where lots of different things are happening. You could have Teams going off, Zoom meeting prep, alerts, this, that, and the other. You're constantly being reminded of other things you have to do, which is switching you out of the particular task at hand. What's being created there is an environment where you have to constantly make decisions. As you're getting alerts, as you're getting disruptions to your task, as you're getting emails coming in, as you're getting, somebody's chatting to you remotely, all of these different things that you're expected to multitask. And multitasking has been really pushed as something quite positive, but really in terms of focus and productivity, it's not the best. What it's creating is something called decision fatigue. So decision fatigue refers to the deteriorating quality of decisions made by an individual after a long session of decision making. It's a significant factor in reducing focus and productivity because it depletes the brain's cognitive resources, particularly in that prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain that predominantly looks after focus, productivity, and decision making. So it is the one that's directing, like, when you are at the airport and you have the fellow with the lights, it's my technical language, that's directing the planes where to go. Think of the prefrontal cortex as directing where your attention and your energy is going. And if you have decision fatigue, your cognitive resources to your prefrontal cortex are getting a bit zapped. When When that happens, it's responsible for executive decisions like decision on making, impulse control, very important as well for those that say, why is it that when I'm tired, I tend to go for foods I shouldn't go for. I tend to make decisions I don't particularly want to stand by. When I'm burnt out, when I'm exhausted, that's what's happening there. It's decision fatigue. It's getting to the point where the cognitive resources to the prefrontal cortex are getting lower and lower and lower. So when we're faced with too many choices, that ability to make a well considered, rounded decision that is beneficial for you long term as well as short term starts to decline. And we might resort to simpler, less optimal, more often than not, choices that seem to help us in the here and now, the very, very short term, and our capacity to see long term, because the prefrontal cortex, when it's acting well, um, is able to project not only in the past and learn from it, but probabilities of the future. So when you're faced with a decision with a declining resource in your prefrontal cortex, and it's not able to project a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, it tends to make decisions based on your comfort and stress levels in the here and now, which are not always and often aren't optimal for you long term. So that's a little bit about the priming aspect, sorry, the science aspect of it. Now going into the priming of it, what is neuropriming and what are some of the technologies that can be used to help towards stimulating greater focus and stimulating greater productivity? So neuropriming refers to techniques aimed at enhancing the brain's learning capabilities by leveraging its plasticity. What I mean by plasticity is the brain's ability to change, its ability to rewire itself in conjunction with what we have asked it to do. And sometimes we ask it to do things like getting primed and repeated of sitting on the couch and taking out the smartphone. And unknowingly, that's what the brain is getting us to do every day. And we go, jeepers, why can't I break that habit? It's basically because the neuroplasticity of that particular time period has been leveraged to basically promote that type of behavior. So we want to make it work for us instead of against us. So neuropriming involves stimulating the brain to improve the efficiency of neural connections, facilitating quicker learning and better performance in cognitive tasks. Techniques can include non-invasive brain stimulation or activities designed to prime the brain for optional function, which enhances focus, memory, and productivity. Now, you can get devices, they're transcranial direct current stimulation, or TDCS, and neurofeedback, which are designed to enhance the brain's learning capabilities. Um, they apply a low electrical current to stimulate specific brain areas, potentially improving cognitive performance and accelerating skill acquisition. You'd see it quite a bit in kind of um, Silicon Valley. I was trying to think, I was like Plastic Valley, Silicon Valley. Um, these types of neuro devices, Neuralink devices that will help to retrain the brain basically to learn better, adapt better, focus better. So the neurofeedback that they provide trains individuals to regulate brain activity and improve focus and mental states. The the most popular neural priming, to be honest with you, are things like visual cues. So visual cues like post-its, like writing something down in your field of vision, like having the background to your laptop be a particular thing you want to keep in your mind. Visual cues can be considered a form of neuropriming, especially when they're used to enhance cognitive performance or learning efficiency. Where that's why I'm coming in with the post-its. By providing visual stimuli related to a task or a skill before engaging in it, the brain can be primed to perform that task more effectively. This particular method leverages the brain's ability to process visual information rapidly and use it to influence subsequent cognitive processes, potentially improving focus, memory retrieval, and decision making. Um, and that's an incredibly popular way of getting our brain on, already stimulated with a particular set of pathways being turned on with that norepinephrine to really be alert to a particular task. So it's a very, very productive way of leveraging your brain's ability to tap into visual cues much quicker. When we see something, when we see a symbol, when we see a depiction, a logo, our brain picks up that information much, much quicker than the likes of reading, for example. Other techniques like mindful meditation target cognitive exercises and structured learning tasks are effective neuro-priming techniques that enhance cognitive performance and promote that neural plasticity, that ability for change, without relying on technology. Mindfulness meditation, for example, can improve attention, reduce stress, and increase gray matter significantly in regions of the brain involved in learning and memory. So even at a physiological level, we're changing the way that the brain processes. Cognitive exercises then designed to challenge and expand mental capabilities. Those things like, those brain puzzle books, they're absolutely brilliant. They're used quite a bit in people looking to slow down cognitive decline, because the more we play around with our brain's ability to um, puzzle solve, decision make, utilize that prefrontal cortex, utilize a lot of the brain functions that would help us to come to you see my own one is struggling now today, to be able to for example, those pictures where it says, what would this shape look like if you moved at 180 degrees? That ability to problem solve in 3 dimensions, it increases our learning capabilities and our adaptability to problems as they come up. So the more we utilize particular brain pathways, the stronger they become. It's like a string becoming a rope, becoming a chain. Repetition is the brain's way of learning. Now you can get the EEG headsets, and to be honest, they're quite popular at the moment. I think Google has a few out, and they will help to. They'll basically look at your brain waves, and it will you can get headsets and you can get apps. So lots of even the Apple Watches, there can be biofeedback apps included with that. And they would be at the technological forefront of enhancing cognitive functions and productivity. They would monitor brain waves, provide real-time feedback, and it allows individuals to understand and optimize their mental states for better focus and efficiency. It will let you know exactly where you're at currently, and it's very good to get a foundation on what it is you'd like to build on. And it'll tell you exactly what areas and what exercises would be a good pathway for you to engage with if you wanted to bring up that cognitive function somewhat. So a really incredible tool. The biofeedback EEG headsets, absolutely fantastic. Research supports their use, and they show a significant improvement in attention, memory, emotional regulation, critical for productivity. Now, in terms of some of the lifestyle factors involved, and some practical applications of going, okay, this is all fine and good, but how can I put it into steps? I will go back to things like sleep, things like adequate nutrition, particularly low carbohydrate diet, and exercise play crucial roles in enhancing brain health, focus, and productivity. So if you are interested in bringing up your productivity, your focus, adequate sleep is absolutely essential for cognitive function, 100% hands down. Now, people say 8 hours is optimal, but actually, if you have anything like one of those watches or devices or apps, they can let you know what your optimal sleep cycle is going to be. It's going to start recording your sleep cycle. It's going to tell you when you're in REM sleep, when you're in other types of sleep, and how to tailor and personalize your sleep routine to really, really enhance your cognitive function, which is an absolutely amazing technology, to have in the last number of decades. It's going to help to consolidate memory, because sleep plays a pivotal role in memory and your concentration. It's going to help clear brain toxins. Absolutely brilliant. And low carb diets then have also been linked to improved concentration and the reduced risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, potentially by stabilizing blood sugar levels. And blood sugar levels have had a massive link with things like dementia and Alzheimer's, which are actually kind of called in literature type 3 diabetes because of their intrinsic link with blood sugar levels. So by reducing the amount of carbohydrates, which in turn turn to sugars in the blood, it limits the potential impact of degenerative cognitive diseases like dementia, like Alzheimer's. And low carbohydrate diets also increase they enhance ketone production, which serve as incredibly efficient brain fuel. So regular exercise then, on the other hand, will help to boost brain health by increasing blood flow to the brain, improving mood, and improving sleep again, reducing stress and anxiety. So when we have lower levels of cortisol, higher levels of serotonin, as we've mentioned, the feel-good hormone, it's going to help us to have greater focus and productivity. Studies like those in the National Sleep Foundation and research published in journals like Neurology support these benefits, highlighting how lifestyle changes can significantly impact cognitive performance and overall well-being. Now, I mentioned a while ago the feel-good neurotransmitters, sorry, not hormones, feel-good neurotransmitters, insofar as how can that help to boost our focus and our productivity. And as a practical exercise, I'll go back to engaging in tasks that are inherently rewarding. So inherently rewarding engages our reward system, engages our dopamine, which is a key neurotransmitter associated with motivation and reward-seeking behaviors. So where dopamine's involved, think of it as the neurotransmitter that closes the gap. It's the thing that gets us from here to there. It makes it more exciting and appear easier to do a task. So the biological response associated with dopamine not only elevates mood, but also sharpens our focus. It makes it easier to sustain attention on a task at hand. Incorporating activities that are both meaningful to you and enjoyable into your daily routine can serve as a really powerful mechanism for enhancing cognitive performance. Now, if you're going, that's all well and good if I'm at home and I've decided I'm going to crochet. I don't know if you're really into crochet, and you'll go, yes, this is great. I could do this for hours. I'm really stimulated. My reward system's firing off. However, when I'm at work and I have to fill out an Excel sheet, I don't quite get the same kick out of it. What's important is to leverage the knowledge that if you find something, anything that's meaningful to you and inherently rewarding to you about a given task, your productivity goes up. On the inverse, if you find yourself in work-based environments where you say to yourself, I don't know why I'm doing this feels meaningless, you will start to see a very, very sharp decrease in your motivation, drive, and focus towards it. So what's a good practical application from the get-go is when you are undertaking a task as a practice to begin for yourself every day, if you can, is to say to yourself, what am I getting out of this? Now, if it's something like the Excel sheet and you say to yourself, I actually really like the pride of a job well done, it can be as simple as, I want the pride of a job well done. If you say to yourself, I really want to perform at the best that I can because there's a promotion coming up, or I really want to perform to the best as I can because I actually quite struggle with this aspect of things. And I want to feel proud of myself for having done something that I previously, maybe a few months ago, would have really struggled with, but I can see that I'm getting gradually better. Find something, anything at all in that particular task, which you are getting as a skill, which you are getting intrinsic meaning out of. Of course, it's easier to do that in particular scenarios than others, but if you can highlight for yourself, for your system, your entire system, before you go into that task, what am I getting out of it? What's intrinsically rewarding? You're going to find your ability to perform that task is going to go way, way up. Your productivity, your focus. Now, there are some techniques like the Pomodoro technique, which breaks up your focus and your attention into sizable chunks. And this is a really, really good technique. You can find it in YouTube videos if you want to just have it running in the background. But basically, it breaks up tasks and focus into 15 to 20-minute increments, whatever is more comfortable for you. If you really, really struggle with focus, I would say start with a lower chunk. And basically what it does is it gives you a timer of, let's say, 15 minutes or 20 minutes where there's no interruption. That's your focus time. You know that it's a short amount of time, so you're not as likely to deviate. It's a shorter chunk of time, and you're going to have a little alarm tell you when that chunk of time is over. So you don't need to constantly check on your phone, on your watch, on your laptop, is the task nearly finished? It's going to tell you that. It'll break it up, give your brain a little bit of a rest, usually around 5 minutes, and then it'll give you the next chunk. This is great for if you're trying to retrain yourself, particularly to read. It's a fantastic technique to use. There's also on a particular application I have found great to stop the deterioration in focus I personally found with digital devices and smartphones is I found my brain absolutely loves short gratification dopamine. It loves it. It lives for it. What I have found is you can get this particular app called Minimal Phone, which basically removes it changes the layout of your phone to remove any colorful icons, any notifications as little icons with color, with shapes, with things like that. And all it gives you is a black and white phone. I have found that absolutely amazing for reducing phone addiction. Because you're not getting that same level of gratification visually. It's very bland, which is brilliant. So you're not getting that consistent need to have little icons go off, and we're small children in our brains. Anything that's colorful and bling and all these kind of things we absolutely love. So it's a really good app to remove that from your phone. You're still going to be able to use it as normal. It just removes colors, icons, and I have found even in the last month and a half of having it on, it's really, really helped me to not want to pick up my phone as often. So I would really recommend that for people that have found their productivity and focus has been negatively impacted by the use of smartphones. It's called Minimal Phone. So that's it for today. Little whirlwind bus tour of focus on productivity with a focus on neuropriming and technologies. Neuropriming is absolutely fantastic if you are looking to increase your productivity, particularly with visual cues. It's absolutely brilliant. Bring in some practical elements in your lifestyle factors, like focusing on a diet that is low carbohydrate, that does not break down into sugars, that doesn't give you up and down of energy constantly, and going for a more sustainable energy source is absolutely brilliant. Focusing on sleep, mindfulness techniques to reduce some of that stress, to help enhance the gray matter in your brain, which is absolutely brilliant. So that's it for me for today. Hope you found some of that useful. Andrew will be back with you next week, and have a great week overall. Have a nice time practicing some of those things, and minimal 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 cheapers. Minimal Phone is the name of the app. So that's me for today. Have a great time, guys, and we'll chat to you next time. Bye now.